Okay, guys, welcome to this morning's Fife Property Show. It is a beautiful day today, and the thing we're going to talk about is so appropriate for the climate just now. See how I've fitted that in? Climate. I'm here all week, try the fish.
Trying that last night, Jim, with fish and grits.
Temperature control future-proofs your home's value with our climate proofing tips. So this is all about the 2022 heatwave, where the temperatures over 40 degrees, and 2021's freeze, where the mercury dropped as low as -23. Our homes are having to deal with its changing weather environment. Property developers have been busily installing extra insulation, high-performance glazing, and comfort cooling for years as well. Building homes that stay warmer in the winter and cooler in the summer, undoubtedly that's the way forward. Buyers are more mindful than ever of energy efficient and skyrocketing bills. So it's time for our beautiful older homes to catch up, and not just for evenings and weekends. The rise in remote working, Perry?
Massive. We've seen a great deal of that, haven't we? Anyone inquiring nowadays is asking for home offices. So people are at home a lot. When you're at home, not so much just now because the weather's great, and obviously we're in summer months, but we're coming into autumn and then it's going to go into winter. So that means you're going to have your lights on, you're going to have your heating on, you're going to be boiling that kettle more. There's all these things that are additional bills, isn't it?
Mm. Yeah. So what does this mean in context then?
I think the rise in remote working, for sure, people are at their homes when it's hot, so they want to keep cool. Aside from the heat causing our brains to shut down, because I was a little bit brain fried yesterday. I'm
absolutely boiling in here just now.
I know, it's so warm.
And I daren't open the blinds, because if you open the blinds, it gets even hotter when the sun comes in the window. We've actually, for the first time in a long time, actually just closed all the blinds during the day for the sun, because it is overpowering at this point in time.
Absolutely. I'm having to do that as well, Jim. I mean, our home is quite a warm home when that sun's beating in it. And again, if you've got young children or animals, and we've got the dog, so you really need to try and keep the heat the rooms as cool as you can. I mean, if we're roasting, imagine walking around with your fur coat on just now. Do you know what I mean? So for them, it's pretty hot.
Fur coat and no shoes.
Can I just put perspective on this though? Perspective here, as the media said the other day, this is the hottest time so far in 46 years. So we had just as hot 46 years ago. So that's a bit of perspective here. It's not the hottest ever on the planet ever in time. It's only the hottest for 46 years. So 46 years ago, this was just as hot at this point in time. So a bit of perspective here. It's no the doom and gloom and the world's falling in and we're all going to burn and go to hell tomorrow.
Only 1 in 3.
I know who my money's on.
But the video calls have become a new part of normal. I mean, look at what we're doing here right now.
Exactly. You've got 3 people who are using electricity, lighting, boiling kettles because we're all sitting with a cuppa. They multiply that around the globe. Definitely people are doing it more. And it has become a big part of the norm, isn't it? But you might not need to dress up on Zoom, although we do. It's a good job that you can't see below camera because I've got my jam bottoms on. But anyway, that's another story. But yeah, Zoom, we've got to be careful and you've got to be professional as well. And although it's hot, I can't sit here in my bikini. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think
whether you want to stay cool or as a cucumber or warm as toast, you need to work out how you're going to do that in your house, don't you?
Yeah.
We might have to actually adapt a more European stance on this and have a siesta at the hottest time of the day if this is going to keep up. In Spain, they down tools at about 11:30 and pick them up again at 3:00 in the afternoon. And then they work on into the evening, which actually a lot of our clients are more available to contact in the evening because they're working during the day. So it would kind of make sense, to...
So are you telling me I've got to then take time off to go to sleep? Because I do work in the evening anyway.
Yeah, I know. Well, I do too, but...
So I've got to go do a part-time job then. I've got to go from 160 hours a week to just 100 now.
Maybe just a wee power nap then.
Yeah, a cat nap.
But this is what this, in all seriousness, so this is what all this this show is about today. It's future-proofing the home and the value, and to keep it at the perfect temperature, whatever the weather is. But, I mean, that's it. I mean, probably the most low-tech solution out of this all is that the Victorians actually knew plenty about this, about keeping the heat out of our homes, and they didn't have today's technology though to help them out. So, given their love for sitting upright in a heavy, formal clothing, they needed effective cooling methods to stop them actually from fainting out throughout the process. So, we can certainly learn something from them in that. I mean, the probably, what, you know, Andrea, what's the sort of things we could learn from the Victorians?
Keep a draft going through your house, natural drafts. You know, our high-tech, close-fitting windows and doors, and no chimney flues or anything like that. You know, it's keeping a draft going through. Do you know what's quite
relevant? Ian talked about it yesterday when we talked about this. He said, and I says, what goes on here? What happens? Because we seem to solve a problem. But he says, yeah, we do. We provide a solution to a problem, but then it creates another problem. And effectively, that's what we've done. We've completely draft-proofed our houses. And now we're talking about how to cool them down. And we're talking about, well, we've completely draft-proofed them. Let's open the windows.
Let's
open the windows to get rid of the condensation and cool down.
Yeah, hello. I mean, the double hung.
Hello, McFly.
The old-fashioned sash and case windows, they were quite effective because you would open them a little bit at the bottom and a little bit at the top. So the cool air would come in at the bottom and the warm air would escape out the top. So it was keeping it a continual. It's a bit like the recirculating thing in your car, bringing in the cold air. So then what do you do, though? Because we've all got top hoppers now. That's the difficulty. We don't, I mean, we've changed from traditional sash and case. I mean, how do you get around that? We've just got top hoppers. You're only opening a window at the top. So do you open a door somewhere in your house to accommodate that? You know, that's the sort of things we need to think about to cool down your house. I mean, I constantly have the top hoppers double locked, by the way. Anybody gets any idea? But your door will be open.
I've got them slightly open, but they're double locked. Just be aware of that. Anybody out there is thinking about something.
Well, that is a difficulty.
Come in rather than just actually have trickle vents in there, just to have that to bring it in. And then you do, you know, now and again you will open a door. Obviously, we have cats in our house, so you didn't want to open every single door because they'll go, yes, the bedroom, straight onto the bed. And probably dogs will do that as well, more than likely. They go for the best room in the house.
So do the burglars, Jim.
So that's probably the thing, and then things, even drafts under your doors. I mean, we've sealed all the doors off, so do we start taking the draft excluders off the bottom of the doors? You know, I mean, we had the old thing about the snake. It was your old socks and tights and everything. You know, put under the, you know, into the snake. All the young people out there were going, "What are you talking about?" It's like, well, we used to get a big long piece of cloth. And then you used to stuff it with all your old socks and all your old, obviously after they've been washed, by the way, all your old socks and your tights and everything like that, everything that wasn't used anymore, and then you just put it in front of the draft under the door, so it would just act as a draft excluder. There's another money-saving tip.
we could make them with the Fife Properties
Make your own
brand
draft excluder.
So we'll make them out with Fife Properties brand on them, Jim. There's a seller for you.
But actually, I use them now. So this is quite a warm house, as I said earlier on. So I do the kind of double lock thing with the windows as well, Jim, like you say. But actually, for the winter months, I do have actually those sausage dog excluders, and you can get them on Amazon. The cheapest chips are like £6 or something. Put them away in the cupboard somewhere under the stairs for the summer months. But in the winter, it's great. But actually, you're not fixing them to your door. So at least in the summer, you can then cool the house down. So there is ways that you can still make that work. I think that's a useful thing to do rather than fixings all the time. Yeah.
For the more highfalutin, plantation blinds, Venetian blinds. I mean, you know, they look super smart in your home for the style, and they're seen as they're actually seen as quite a valuable asset by buyers when you put plantation blinds on your windows. They almost become a bit of value added to the property, whereas Venetian blinds don't. And vertical blinds, vertical blinds are okay. They're in between, I would say. And because they're hinged and hung on the frame, they don't allow the heat and the cool to slip around the sides either. So you can just adjust the louvers when you actually need to let the extra light in and to deflect the sun as well, and the rays. So, you know, as well as the other one is when you get loads of sun coming in, sometimes it could bleach your carpet and then bleach your furniture as well. We had that recently, didn't we, in St Andrews? You know, where somebody said, look, put the blinds up because it'll bleach the furniture. And and lo and behold, we've actually seen that in quite a lot of places where now that's been mentioned, it's been more visual in my mind, and I've been looking out for it, and it's like, wow, I never realised that, because you know, that constant square that comes in the window, and then all of a sudden it's like, you know, you think that's worn, but it's not. It's actually bleached because of the sun. You see that in window cards as well, don't you? If you put the wrong quality of ink in, like, well, I mean, we use pigment ink, which is 200 years fade resistant for window cards, and that's deliberately why we use it, because when the sun hits it, if it's just a lasered effort, it just immediately, 2 or 3 days, it's gone, it's bleached completely.
Yeah,
and the
definitely.
So
you're right about that.
Yeah.
Now, we saw it certainly with that particular property that you're talking about in St Andrews. It was very much like that, and there was a very specific way of kind of opening that home up and then closing that home down. And actually, because of that, it made me think about my home. And I know plantation blinds, I mean, sometimes they can be quite expensive, Jim, and there are cheaper ways of doing it. You know, you can get firms in to do it, and it does cost quite a lot. But what we did actually is Billy went round and just measured all of our windows, and then we ordered them online from an online company. But what the windows are, it's the ones, you know, that they actually fit to your window frame. So it actually looks like it's part of your window. Much more economical way of doing it. It costs us about a quarter of the price. And actually, they're fantastic. And in the morning when I'm going out, I literally, at the moment, because it's been so bright, I just close them all in the morning, double lock the hinge, and it keeps the place beautiful and cool for when you come in. But when you're saying about the staining as well, I think it's not just carpets and furniture. A lot of homes now, and we see this, don't we, where they've got wooden flooring or they've got laminate or something, and that really can bleach easily as well. So it's a good way of protecting your property as well.
Yeah. Now, I tell you what as well, ceiling fans. Now, it's like that. Ceiling fans are really hotter countries. They're really like Spain and stuff like that as well. But believe it or not, next door where we lived before, we actually used a ceiling fan in the bedroom because it was just it was intensely hot all the time. So that's nothing new to us. And we were actually talking about it recently about using that. I mean, Scott's got about 5 fans in his room. They're all blowing them different angles, and I'm thinking, why do you just open the window and close the blind so it doesn't heat the place up? But literally, he's now bought himself an industrial fan.
Can I just say, the only thing about fans is they just move the warm air from one bit to the other. You have to have a cooler source coming in somewhere to actually cool the room down. It's nice to not be sitting in still warm air. It's always better to, it feels better if there's air moving. At least it doesn't feel psychologically quite as hot, but it doesn't actually cool the room. But you can get one of these fans and you just stick a big empty bottle, a lemonade bottle or something, fill it half full with water and put it in your freezer, and in the morning you just sit that in front of the fan, and the air that blows past that takes the coolness into the room.
No, I never thought about that. That's a good idea. You also get, notice in Spain as well, you get these ones that have the like what you said, but they have actually the spray water that comes out, so it automatically sprays water and it blows out towards you and obviously hits you. I mean, clearly, obviously, you've got to watch it for Legionella testing later on, and you'd have to make sure you clean everything over a period of time. But it's actually a really great idea. I mean, ceiling fans have come a long way since the 1980s. You have the classic styles, the Victorians, the modern industrial, and everything in between. But they now make even a classier statement, design statement. They're large blades and cool your room more effectively than floor-standing fans, and they occupy an entirely unused airspace above you because you never really use that. You can also usually install them using your light fittings existing wiring, which is pretty good. But then they have 2 different ways. They can blow the air up. They can take the air up, or they can take the air down, depending on how you want it. So if you want to cool down, you send the air down. If you want to heat up, you obviously want the air to go up because it pushes the hot air down by natural convection. So there's 2 ways to use ceiling fans in your house. Obviously, if you've got quite a low ceiling, that's not going to be a possibility, especially if you've got young kids and you're throwing them up in the air. Hello, Daddy, swinging around, fleeing around. So that's the sort of thing. So just to recap, you're talking about the drafts. Make sure you've got 3 drafts. Make sure you've got things like plantation blinds, possibly vertical blinds, horizontal, blinds as well, to actually just close off the window from the sun when it comes round, just to keep it a bit cooler. I mean, effectively, I've seen it in my house. You go into the hall and there's no sunlight at all in the hall, so it's absolutely room temperature, if not a bit less. You walk into the kitchen, which is in the mainstream sun, and it is boiling. It is like a greenhouse, and that's what I'm saying. We have to close the blinds towards the afternoon, because then that's when the sun comes round. So that's probably the advice on there. What about other things, Andrea? What other things can we do? What is the next sort of thing we can do?
Well, there are such things called thermal barriers. So insulation.
Okay.
It comes in various forms and is generally viewed as a way to keep your home warmer in the winter, but it's equally as effective in keeping out the heat on blistering hot days. Yeah. So your options are, with your windows, your modern double and triple glazing is argon gas filled between the panes, and it blocks out the transference of the heat or the cold through the glass. So triple glazing has generally been recognised as extra effective for taking the chill off north and east facing rooms. Yep. In the winter, but it can also keep south and west facing rooms cooler in the summer. Now, how do you know you've got the most up-to-date double glazing? And I've got the answer to that. You notice there's a black strip rather than a silver or a gold strip in between the glazing. That's how you know you've got. I think it's the argon gas, because the argon gas actually doesn't. It maybe actually decays the gold and the silver. So they've got a black, I think it's neoprene seal out throughout inside it. Someone that's got double glazing knowledge will probably know this. But that's how you know you've got the most up-to-date double glazing. And you've got silver, or you've got and I think it's something like 22 millimeter you're looking for in terms of the gap that's in between. 18 to 22 makes it more efficient. If you've got the wee tiny stuff, from years ago with Alu glaze or Everest, which is aluminium glazing, it's like 2 millimeters. That's probably the most inefficient double glazing you can ever get. I would dare and say it's probably just single glazing, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, we recently had our windows done. So ours were fitted just in June there, and we had C.R. Smith out to do ours. There are other companies out there that you can use, people, but you're right what you say, it's got the black in them. But it was the Lorimer windows that we went for, and what it does in the winter as well is it's got like a heat barrier inside. So as your room is heating up, other windows will let some of that heat seep out. But these have got like a barrier on them where actually it bounces and reflects the heat back into the room, so it keeps your rooms warmer in the winter and cooler as well. And actually on that thing, I was looking into the Scotland Fund that you can get as well. So if some people are out there and they're looking to perhaps
Energy Saving Trust Scotland, is that the one you're talking about?
Well, there is that one, but there's also scotlandfundwindows.org, which is the government one. And actually, I looked at it earlier on today, and you can literally, as soon as you go into it, Jim, it's scotlandfundwindows.org. And as soon as you click on it, you can actually start the application process straight away to see if you qualify. And they will give up to £2,500 towards new windows. So again, if there's people out there who want to do it, but maybe just don't have the funds to do it all themselves, they may well qualify.
Okay. I'm just having a quick look at that now, just to make sure. Talk amongst yourselves, talk about the next subject, stuff like that. Just make sure it's all kosher.
We made an investment this year in a new roof for our conservatory, replacing the polycarbonate. Very inefficient roof with an ultra glass roof. I mean, it's just amazing. It's great to be able to see the sky through it, for one thing. But we're already noticing the benefits of it, and it's a room now that can be used all year round, rather than just we couldn't even really use it in the summer because it was too hot, and now we can sit in there, we have our meals in there. It's really good. But one thing, and that was a company from Rosyth, by the way, that did that, because there wasn't any other comparable company, but their agent told us that triple glazing, a lot of people think that will actually be better than double glazing, but actually it's better maybe for noise reduction.
I think noise is better.
but not heat reduction or heat insulation, because basically you've got the same amount of gap as you would have between the double glazing as there is between the triple glazing, but they just squeeze that extra panel in the triple.
Yeah, absolutely. I've put a couple of links on here to homeenergyscotland.org, which is finding funds and grants for stuff like that, and also the Energy Saving Trust, which is an actual government approved agency as well. So I'll put a couple of links on there. They'll have that link to what you've just talked about, Perry, as well, if that's relevant. So they're the main bodies that will actually administer any funds like that to these organisations. So hopefully that'll help everybody in terms of that. The walls, I mean, anything about the walls? What would we do with that? Cavity wall insulation, what does that mean? What's that all about? That's in here as well, actually, Energy Saving Trust Scotland.
Yeah, well, the walls, and like homes from 1930s onwards, built from then, often had cavity walls, and they can be insulated by drilling holes in the brickwork and filling the space in between with an insulating foam. It is a low cost, but they say it's highly effective. I'm still out on that one, because
I think I can't disagree with that, Andrea. I'm still nervous about the fact that you're closing a cavity and you're inviting moisture to come in.
Yeah, causing a bridge.
Yeah, and that's what makes me nervous about the cavity wall insulation. I would say make sure your provider that does it is approved by somebody like the Energy Saving Trust in order to do that, and make sure they give you the right advice. Classic example is Main Street in Methil Hill. Most of these properties can be done, but there is some properties that can't be done by cavity wall insulation because the cavity is too wide. The cavity is actually too wide, and we had someone out to look at it on behalf of one of our landlords, and they said, "Look, cavity is just too wide. We can't do it because of that reason." And there is also difficulties with cavity wall insulation when you have flats, for example, because you can't just do one flat. You can't do the top if the bottom's no getting done, because then it all goes to the bottom. There's no way, because it's straight down, isn't it? And then you can't do unless next door's getting done. So you have to find the natural end to the actual wall where the cavity stops in order to do everything. So then you have to get consent from everyone in order to do cavity wall insulation. Now, I don't see how that could be a difficult assumption, because you're getting it for free on most occasions. But believe it or not, there was some people, when I tried to get it done, went, "Oh, I'm not really sure if I want that." And I'm like, "You're getting it for free." You're getting free cavity wall insulation. The word "free" doesn't give you any enthusiasm because it's free. It's like,
I know, but
I'm not really sure I need to get that done. And I'm like, holy shit! It's the government's telling you need to get it done for energy efficiency.
I think there's this mentality about that, though. We're all taught it, aren't we? There's no such thing as a free lunch. So I think we get a bit nervous when somebody says something's for free. You feel that there's something in it, don't you?
That is the cynical aspect of it. But the thing is, it's an approved body. It's the government is actually approved to do it, and it's they're actually providing the funding to do it. And it's like, how is that so difficult? But still, people are actually reluctant sometimes to get that done. So if you're out there and we've got the links in this post right now to the Energy Saving Trust Scotland, so you can actually just go on, find out for yourself. There's lots of other things in there for efficiency, like, we'll talk about them in a wee while, and they'll be on there as well. So the walls in the home, older period homes, as I said, haven't had it so easy. Exterior insulation can ruin the appearance of from the street for other properties. You've seen that before, where the big high rises have to get done, and some of the ex-local authority properties have to get done as well, and they then have to do the other ones next door because it just looks unsightly, because they're having to put insulation on the outside panels because they can't do it on the inside, because there is no cavity the way they were built. Often, sometimes there may be the steel frame structure, or there are no fines, which is another one, another type of build as well. Technology is developing all the time with solutions like, the thermoblock, as I said, coming up in the super slim strips of just, they're 5 millimeters, but you still have to put them on, you still have to finish them off. So that's another one as well. Perry, what about things like, should we bother about floors and ceilings? I was in somebody's house the other day and they said, see, under the floors, we've got big blocks, strip blocks underneath between the joists. Is that something we should be doing?
I think ceilings and floors are a good thing. Roof spaces can be not just insulated, but actually used as a functional place as well, aren't they? So we talk about that in regards to people working from home. So roof space is a big source of your heat loss. I mean, it's something actually I remember as a child, my mum and dad used to say to me, oh, they must have an awful cold house, or they must have an awful warm house. Because in the winter, when the snow used to be on it, you'd see some of the roofs would have white and other roofs would not have anything. So you kind of knew which ones were well insulated and which ones weren't, because obviously the heat's going up and melting.
As a top tip, as a landlord, I used to wait till winter came, and when the snow came, I used to go around my stock and actually look at the roofs. And then I would see straight away if there was any heat loss, and if it was melted at any point. So then I would know where the problematic areas are, and it would be a telltale sign for me. So that's a wee top tip for investors out there. You know, if you've got housing stock, go around when the snow's falling, you'll be able to find out. You also find out as well when all your gutters are problematic as well, because then you start to see the water overflowing over the gutter. So that's another top tip for investors and landlords out there. So the one as well, when you talked about roof space, Perry, the telltale sign is if your house is warm during the winter and you immediately go up into the attic and it's Baltic, then you've got the right insulation.
Yeah.
If it's not and you go up into the attic and it's warm, you find that you've not got the proper insulation in there.
Yeah.
It should not be warm in your attic. It should also be quite drafty. There should be a lot of airflow in there as well, because you can't afford to just completely seal it off from any airflow. So if you have got all your ventilation in, often as well, they put in air vents into the actual roof as part of the insulation measures, just to allow the airflow to get in, so you don't get that concentration of maybe you have a leak and water comes in and then it's got nowhere to escape because there's no drafts. Therefore, it goes straight for the joist, and the next minute you've got dry rot or wet rot, depending on which one it is. I'm not really sure. I'm sure it's opposite of one or the other. I think if it's wet, that's dry rot, and if it's dry, that's wet rot. maybe a specialist out there will be able to tell me that. But you're absolutely right, Perry. It's a real good top tip. What other things have we got?
So, well, there's that, because I mean, obviously in the winter time, it's going to mean that you're letting all your heat out. So in the winter, it's freezing. But then again, if you're not well insulated in the summer, especially the heat we've been having just now, your houses could be roasting because you've not got the right insulation, because everything's getting, all that heat is coming into the house the same way that all the heat is going out of the house in the winter time.
It provides a sort of barrier as well.
Yeah, exactly. So, people do need that as well. So insulation on the underside of your roofs or between the ceiling joists are a real swift and effective way of doing it, isn't it? Yeah. And you can go down to any of the DIY stores and you can buy the big rolls of it that you can just do yourself.
But as I say, get professional advice first before you go and do a DIY job. Look up the manufacturer's followed guidelines, because they will probably tell you to make sure you put a wee bit of ventilation into your roof as well, or get some sort of ventilation through there.
Yeah.
What about floors then?
Well, with floors, I mean, if you're at street level, that can be a great thing because it can keep your house cool, but it also can let a lot of hot air in. So we're really warm just now, so that's something to be looking for. But if you've got a cellar, it's relatively simple to fit insulation panels between the joists if you've got a cellar as well. And some of the, certainly in East Neuk, we see that with quite a lot of properties, don't we? Because just of the age that they were and the functionality they had, because a lot of them were fishermen's houses, weren't they? Where they had their cellars for stocking all their nets and their catchers and stuff, didn't they? Yeah.
You do see that quite a lot on hilled places. Castle Terrace and Kennaway, Myerside as well. They've all got underfloor that you can get into the cellar through the outside sometimes because they're actually on a hill. So it is an ideal opportunity to actually be able to do that quite easily and efficiently. Some of the other places, like, for example, my house, one end you can get in comfortably, but the other end you've got to just be able to shimmy yourself up there. Now, I can't get under there anymore, so I send the boys under. Now, I tell you what, they're over 20, by the way, so it's no child labour here. We didn't send them down the chimney or up the chimney to sweep them. It's like we didn't have any chimneys anymore, and they're over 20, so they're old enough. There's no slave labour here. So before anybody jumps on that.
We've actually sort of just gone back to the ceiling hatches. Another top tip for keeping your house cool is to open your ceiling hatch, because the hot air will always rise, so you may as well stick it up into the attic. And ours has been down for days now, so but the house that I live in, it's a modern house, but we have concrete floors on the ground level, so we can't do anything with that. I don't feel the house is particularly cold because of concrete floors.
Do you know what I did with the concrete floors? We have a concrete floor from our old kitchen in our house, and it was Mark Taylor actually put a floating floor in it. So it's literally just about 2 or 3 inches off the floor of just a floating floor. And I tell you what, you walk in that room every single time and it is melting, it is boiling, just because they took it off the concrete floor and put a floating floor in. And as well, it allowed us then to put small radiator pipes underneath the actual floating floor. But it's only a couple inches off the concrete itself. And it's actually very, very effective at insulating. So it means if you do have a wee rise when you go into that room from the hall. I mean, but you're only talking about a couple of inches, so you know it's there. But it also means if you're going to start putting floating floors in your house, if it's all concrete, then you're possibly going to have to raise the doors as well, the door standards. Most companies, new build, are actually concrete floors as well. They just you could see that they just put a template down and they immediately just go straight for the concrete. They don't actually put an under. They don't put founds in and put an under the floor now, where people can get under. So I think that's another thing. Possibly, I'm not really sure. Maybe they do put a floating floor on top of that, and maybe that does insulate it. But I tell you what, if it's straight onto the concrete, that might come back to haunt them. I have Kenaway got some Hawfield Gardens. They've got concrete floors all the way throughout. That's how they were all built. They're actually, some of them are actually suffering. It's called Blay-Heave slip. So what happens is they put a massive vapor barrier down. So like really heavy duty plastic. It'll probably never break or tear, but it does. Because over time the house unsettles a wee bit. So over the years, then you get a crack in the concrete and possibly you know what's happening next. The vapor barrier goes because the crack happens. The vapor barrier splits, and therefore you get Blay-Heave slip, as it's called apparently, and that could cause real problems in your property later on. So some of them, most of them in Hawfield, I think, have these sort of things because I've got a property there, and that's kind of what happened. But it didn't happen. There was, just a couple of cracks in the floor, but it wasn't that at all. But that's how I found out about it all. To make sure. So it's not an easy thing to fix if it happens. So that's another way with concrete floors, maybe to insulate concrete floors, just to put that floating floor in as a solution. What other things can we do? You've got lay carpets on top of them, underfloors.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, carpets and laid timber flooring are a good way to kind of effectively thermalise your property. But actually, you can also, if you like, and we see this in a lot of the properties that we go to, is people have the floorboards, don't they? They want the bare flooring. Yeah. But again, that can cause drafts, can't it? Because they could be coming up and through the kind of gaps between the wood. But a good way around that is actually just to put a bit of sawdust in all the gaps, and then put a bit of epoxy resin on top, so it's quite clear and it just looks like wood. And then that way you're not kind of getting all the drafts in, and you're not spoiling the look of the natural wood and boards as well. So nice wee top tip.
Good idea. Oh, that's a really good idea. Okay, so let's get on to the real serious stuff. It's mega expensive. Air conditioning or heat pumps. Is this something that we should really be focusing on? Considering the so-called cost of living crisis, how wonderful it would be to step out of the heat and into a refreshingly cool space. As the zing of the air brings your energy back in the air conditioning, your brain starts ticking again. We have it when we go abroad, don't we? When you go to places like Spain and that, they've got air conditioning in every single property, more or less. Apart from mine, because I'm a tight get.
I was going to say, when I'm on holiday.
That's why I'm closing blinds and opening windows. I just put the shutters down. That's it. And just keep it down and leave the cool air coming in through the wee gaps in the shutters during the day.
I don't like air conditioning at all. I just don't like feeling like I'm in the freezer aisle of Tesco all the time. There are other shops available.
This is how it was. This is how it was yesterday. Absolutely roasting outside in Edinburgh. And then I walked into, I can't remember where it was. It was one of the cafes or restaurants or that. And then subsequently walked right back out because it was so cold. And we were dressed for the outside, with just shorts and t-shirt on. It's like when you walked into there, it was like ice. It was just like sitting in an ice bath. And I thought, I cannot sit in here because it was far too cold. So, I mean, less than 3% of UK homes actually have air conditioning. And there's plenty of debate over whether it's actually needed. But given the online searches for air conditioned spiked and the heat wave, the prospect of increasingly hot summers is clearly on people's minds. Air conditioners as well can actually act as heaters as well. So is this something that we could end up moving into later on as the so-called temperatures increase? Now, given how few people have it, here's a quick rundown of the air conditioning and how a heat pump might be able to do the same jobs with extra benefits. So air conditioning systems come in the two parts. It's an indoor unit and it's an outdoor condenser. While indoor insulation entails channeling out walls to hide the power cables and the refrigerant pipes, a well-designed unit from brands like Dalkin and Bosch can be unobtrusive when mounted on the unused wall space above your doorways. Nobody's ever used them, apart from a wee window on the top, which was bizarre to me.
Yeah, what was that all about?
Well, the houses that put the wee windows on the tops. It was like as if we need some natural light into the hall. Why not just switch the light on?
I know.
It costs money, Jim.
Putting windows above every single doorway, it doesn't have any effect at all. Mostly you uncover them as well, actually. When you go to decorate, it's like, oh, what's this? And it's it's a cut of wood paneling or something like that put over it. It's like you take it off and it's like, oh, it's a window. It's like, I can look out. No, I can't look outside. It's looking into the hall. So outdoor units generally need to go at the back of your property to preserve the street view. That's quite important, as they release the heat and look a bit bulky. And so think about the location and the screening options. Some systems allow you to connect multiple indoor units to a single outdoor condenser, as well as cooling your home. Modern air conditioning systems can also provide energy-efficient heating in the winter. As I said, they double up. And they use much less energy than electrical convector radiators. And you could even free up some space and some wall space because you're taking the radiator from the wall and you're actually putting it up at the top. And when you think about it, is it not more effective to push the hot air down and the cold air down than it is actually to let it rise up? Because all it does in your radiator is just rise up and you're relying on it going round the room. So your radiator's sitting here and the natural convection is meant to come under your door from the draft that you've now closed off, by the way. That's the natural convection. That's how they're meant to work. That's why they've got fins on them inside them. So then they go up, the heat goes up and it goes into the radiator from the radiator and the draft goes up as well. And it heats up when the draft goes up. It circulates right round the room and it goes back round to the door again. And then we start again. And that's what it was all designed to do. And that's why you effectively put radiators under windows. But you don't need radiators under windows anymore because we've closed off all the drafts. That's all it was there for. And plus the fact you end up putting your curtains over the top of your radiators. Defeats the purpose completely. Hey, you put a radiator under heat in the winter, and then the first thing you do is close the curtains at night and it goes over the radiator. What's the point of that?
Or you can put your curtains behind it and it looks awful.
In our house, our window comes down too low to have a radiator in front of it, which is where I personally prefer radiators to be, is under the window, because I wouldn't put furniture right in front of the window. So where's the radiator in our living room? Right behind where we've got to put the settee. So it's still getting covered. Yeah. So
now the most efficient, because you've closed off all the drafts, there's no convection in a room anymore. The most efficient place to put it is behind the door, where it opens onto. That's what most people. That's what most. I'm. You know, if there's a plumber out there that differs with me, please feel free to interject and actually give your opinion. Watch though, because you'll be deleted. Be careful, you didn't say anything controversial, or it'll be ban and delete. You're off. You're out. That's it. One strike and you're out. So if you've got an opinion, please make it nice. But it's true though. It's actually that, you know, I used to think it was actually ludicrous to put it behind the door as it opens. So the door opens and it opens to the radiator at the back of the door. So it makes it nice and efficient. Not the other way, by the way. So it's at the back of the door, so it makes it nice and efficient, because you're never ever going to use that space, because that's where the door opens to anyway. So that's why they put it there, because there's no natural convection in the room anymore, because it's all been taken away with the draft proofing exercise. So that's why it's just put it behind the door. Often as well, though, because you've got TVRs, I think it is, on the radiators, the temperature controls. Oh, it's a bugbear of mine. Please TVRs that control the temperature in your room, not on the radiator. The hot water in the radiator is controlled to the temperature from your boiler. The temperature in your room is controlled by the TVR on the radiator itself. So if you put it to the middle one, that's usually about 20 degrees in your room, gets to 20 degrees, the TVR stops the radiator water coming through, therefore it cools down. The temperature starts to drop below 20 degrees, the TVR opens up the valve again, lets the hot water come in again, and heats your room up again. That's what it's designed to do. So stop thinking, oh, it's the radiator's really cold, or it's really, it's not as warm as it should be. Let's blast it up to the full amount. No, that's just letting the whole temperature in your room just go sky high. And then you go, oh, it's too cold, and you turn it away down to the bottom, and the next minute you go, oh, it's too hot. It's like, oh my God. It's like, use it for how it is. You could tell it's a bugbear of mine, yeah?
I remember when winter was here, Jim, it was our first winter working together, and that was the first thing you did when you came into the building was go around and check all the radiators were set at the right thing, because you walked in, you go, it's too hot in here. You went in and fixed all the radiators.
It's like the Sahara Desert during the day. It's like flipping heck. It's like 40 odd degrees. I can go outside and cool down. And outside it's about 30 degrees. And that's the fact. So use the TVRs how they're meant to be used. That's all about energy efficiency and heat measures and actually controlling your costs. So the heat pumps. So how could a heat pump do all that and more that I've just spoken about in terms of the air conditioning units? Well, although they can operate in a similar way as the aircon for cooling and heating your home, they can also connect to your water for heating via existing radiators or underfloor systems, and to hot water cylinders for baths and showers. So completely, it's a multifunctional system rather than actually an air conditioner. But
do you see them often in homes, Jim, when you're going out and about? It's not something I've really seen much of.
And there's some people have actually started to put them in, but to be honest, I think they're costing an absolute fortune to install. I mean, some people are getting quotes at £18,000 and thinks that's okay. And I'm like, what?
That's a lot of money.
Mental. But we could save all that money over the next 50 years. You'll be dead in 20. Why do you need it? You're not going to pass it on to anybody.
It just sounds expensive to me. I didn't realize they were that expensive, but it just sounds like it would be expensive. And I've not seen it much. And that indicated to me that's maybe a reason why. Yeah,
it's not cost effective now. Now, what happens in most economies, this is what happens. It's all about opportunity cost or opportunity loss, isn't it? It's like when it comes to the point where energy prices go sky high, then you begin to realize that it now justifies the 30% saving it can give you because it's based on the current energy price. And therefore, when you say, okay, and the energy prices have gone up 4 times, and instead of it being a 20-year payback, this has now become a 5-year payback. See how that's done?
Yeah.
So then it makes it justifiable to then go and get that type of system. That happens every single time. That's why when I worked with Tillis Russell, we went from a coal-fired power station to an oil-fired power station and then a gas-fired power station. And all in the time that I was there. And I was only there for about 5 years. Because it just at the time, the prices on these different utilities went up so much, it made it more justifiable to change to a different type of system for that reason. And the payback was, perfect. The reliance on coal was obviously all the strikes and everything like that. And then said, well, we can't rely on that anymore. So they moved from coal to the oil, and then the oil went up in price as well. And then they went, well, we can't rely on that anymore because it's too costly. And what is it compared to gas? And gas was so cheap at that time. Well, it makes it justifiable to do that as well. So then they went and changed their gas, and the gas prices went up as well. And now they're out of business; they no longer exist. And they went to, believe it or not, they went to biomass, and that was the biomass plant. It was put next to it, and the biomass plant was built. And Tillis Russell, I think, contributed about 2 million to it in terms of the cost. I think it was 5 million to build, and it was for the rest of the community. Obviously, it was going back into it was not just Tillis Russell's, but they contributed to it and says they would use it. As a result, at a cheaper rate for contributing the 2 million at the time. But then, so that you could see in that period of time how they changed it because it became completely justifiable. So if energy prices keep going up, and this makes you this astronomical saving in comparison to other methods, then yes, you'll see a lot more of these being installed. the biggest deal breaker is the thousands of pounds it costs the homeowners, but the government does have some costs and measures to give towards that installation. Now, check with your energy supplier's website, but you can also check the links I've put in here for the Energy Saving Trust Scotland and the Home Energy Scotland as well. Now, Energy Saving Trust Scotland also is Energy Saving Trust for the whole of the UK. It's just that I've got it on the Scottish link just now. So if you click on that link, you just change it to England, and England have their own measures as well put in by their government, because these grants are actually administered by each individual government in that country itself. So it's the administration that actually administers itself for the people of that country. So it's probably the biggest deal breaker.
I think new houses are now going to have to start being built with more energy saving heating.
I was driving past Kirkcaldy on the way to Edinburgh, and just as you're going to Randolph Industrial Estate, across from there, you've got Barrett and Persimmon. You've got all these new homes going in. Now, a lot of them actually have solar panels on the roof, but some of them don't, actually. And I was thinking, I thought it was a necessity for every single house to have something like that. So I don't know if it's different spec at maybe a house builder. If there are guys involved in house building, why is it that some houses will have solar panels and some don't? Is it just a preference, or is there a requirement by the government in planning to say that if you have a development, you've got to have X amount, it's maybe energy saving installed like that? Or you maybe have to have, if you don't have that, you maybe have to have ground source heat pumps or air source heat pumps, because they're two different things. Or you might have to have you're obviously always going to have an energy efficient boiler, because you're going to have a condenser boiler, because that is mandatory. All boilers are condensers now. And then you always have TVRs on every single radiator. And then you always have the installation of the pipes as they go to the radiators. And then all these different measures to make that overall saving. But we don't realise that happens, because it happens over a period of time. And that saves a huge amount of money on your utilities. And yet we still say that we spend a lot of money on utilities, because the energy companies go, yay, it's an opportunity to put the prices up.
Well, I know. Well, my mum's 90, and she's having a wee bit of a meltdown with all the price rises, and she lives on her own in her own house. And she said, I need to get a separate socket for the TV. I have to be able to switch my TV off at night. I can't leave it on standby because it's costing so much money. And I worked it out, £12 a year to leave your television on standby. But it's awful that the old people are being made to feel that, at 90, who needs that stress?
Yeah. But like my mum and dad, they think money's scarce, and it's not. I'll be honest about that, because they don't have, I mean, I think it's indoctrinated into us when we're young. It's like what you says, Perry. We're taught about the fact that it's going to cost us a fortune. And we don't actually look at what we've got or what we could forgo. And there's a lot of luxury items out there that people get. And it's like, well, just cut back on that. And then that'll obviously offset on that. Why would you need to sit and go through that turmoil and torment and put yourself through that? But we don't actually see that, because we're completely blinkered by what's going on and what we're being fed. It's this what we're being fed on. That yourself. It's like you go on and they've got banners on the bottom, cost of living crisis on the television, on the news. They've got ticker tapes going on the bottom, cost of living crisis. They've got, they're going to have street parties and buntings next for cost of living crisis. That's almost how we're getting. It's like, my God. And then we get 0.1% in a quarter of growth, minus 0.1%. Oh my God, we're in recession. It's like, hello, it's only 0.1 minus 1%. It's only minus 0.1%. That's kind of break even. I wouldn't say that's really a recession right now. Recession to me is like we're in the doldrums, and we're like at minus 5%, and we're minus 10%. But minus 0.1% isn't really a recession. But we're adamant that we're going into it. Everybody's beating that drum. So it's easy for the older generation to get locked into that system, because that's what they rely on. They rely on the television, they rely on the radio, they rely on the newspapers to tell them all that, because that's how they get their information. And then they have people, the glory hunters on social media, going, oh my God, the world's falling in. It's like panic. It's like, look, stop doing that. if you're coming on, give us practical advice. Don't talk about panic. Give us practical advice. Tell us what we can do about it. Don't just whip up a frenzy. I think that's my advice. So there is people out there. It does have the means to survive and go on. It's just that they don't realise it because they're fed this blinkered approach to this. So you're absolutely right, Andrea. The money, I'm going to talk about this. Money should go to the people that need it, and we need to administer a system to do that. That's my wee political protest for today.
It's true though, because it is all you see on the news just now, and it is concerning. And I think people are now starting to feel, you know, whilst we're sitting now in nice warm weather, coming to at the end of next month, you know, we're going to be really into the kind of autumnal weather coming in, and then you're coming into winter. And I think people are just feeling, because they're watching this all the time on the TV, what's coming, and it does frenzy people, rightly or wrongly. But you're right, yeah. It's what you say, Jim, and the fact that they're throwing all that at us, but they're not giving us any means or ways that we can help ourselves by fixing it.
Yeah, and people like Martin Lewis is probably one of the best ones to give you the right advice to do that. So Martin Lewis, money saving expert, probably the best advice to do that. We did a show the other week, Richard and I, how to save up to £1,500 a month in what you're doing right now. So even if you don't save £1,500 a month, you might get a couple of hundred out of that, out of the ideas that we've given everybody. So there's that's another way of doing that. So it's practical advice people need. It's not somebody to come on and go, we're going into a crisis, and then get everybody else on the television to back that up for them and just say, yeah, we are going into a crisis. Yeah. What do you think? Yeah, we are. Yeah, we are. Oh, and then everybody goes, oh, yeah, we are. It's like, it's herd mentality, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. I thought that was a really good show, actually. If people hadn't seen that show, watch it. But the best bit about that show was how you told people how they could get more money out of their bosses, Jim. I really like that.
The answer's still no.
Anyway, I think it's time.
You know why
to
that is? The answer's about because I actually moved from one job to another and actually doubled my salary and got a company car, and it's all as a result of what I did before in my previous jobs and the knowledge and expertise I acquired as it, and that allowed me then to take that massive leap. And as well, during the process, I was able to get that because of all the things I did over and above what I was normally doing. So it's I can expand on that on another wealth creation show. But if anybody's not seen that, check that out on our YouTube channel, the Wealth Creation Show. It was episode 31, I think it was, the cost of living crisis and how to beat it. Anyway, let's get back to this all-weather gardens. What can we, is the garden any focus in this? Should we bother? What's your thoughts, Perry?
I think we should bother. I mean, at the moment, we all know this, creating outdoor space over the last 2-3 years since the pandemic's become a massive trend, isn't it? Because everybody wants kind of garden shelters, garden rooms. They're wanting to work from home. They're wanting to entertain their families there because we couldn't go anywhere else to entertain. So you saw this massive influx of people building outdoor spaces, and there was a real good demand for it. But making your outdoor space usable all year round is obviously a big thing as well, because they're great in the summer when they're nice and warm, but what are you going to do in the winter when it's freezing? So it's about making sure that they're done as well. So Mother Nature always delivers, doesn't she, in regards to warmness and coldness. But shade from tree foliage is always a good thing. It can block out 90%. So again, if you're like me, I used to be a real sun seeker. Menopause has got a lot to answer for, hasn't it, Andrea? But I don't like the sun and the heat anymore. So the people at the back of us, they've got a lovely big tree in their garden. So depending on what my body temperature's like, depends where I sit in my garden in regards to where I'm going to go, because it just gets too warm. I just can't stand it. It's too hot for me. So it's really nice to kind of get that comfortable feeling. So I like the coolness of trees and plants in your garden. They also kind of reduce the humidity as well. So, that catches in the tree. So when it's been really warm like that, it's done that for me. But keeping those rooms warm is going to be a big challenge for people. So again, temperature controlling is a good thing. You see people now with their garden rooms where they've got log burners in them for the winter time, which is grand, because they're always going to be warm in the summer months. But in the winter, stick a little log burner in there. It's a great way to kind of
burn the planet while we're at it.
Yeah.
you could burn logs, not coal, things like that.
All right. So the key here is, but you can go undercover. You can make sure you've got natural coolants, things like a basin or a pond in your garden to help reduce the temperature. Design the driveways. Asphalt absorbs the heat. and can reach a staggering 50 degrees on a sunny day or just 25. To avoid the Luton Airport style meltdown of your driveway, choose brick, cobbles, pavers, pea gravel, or even a better designer look that beats the heat and ramps up your curb appeal. I think that's the main thing out of I mean, there's more information in the article as well. We can go on forever about that.
Yeah.
But the one I want to talk about is use the sun to slash your bills. I mean, this is brilliant. I mean, hotter summers aren't all bad news. You can harness the sun's energy to generate solar power for your home and become less reliant on utility companies and their skyrocketing bills. Now, you can read more about that, and we did an actual energy saving measures on our previous blog, and the actual link in here to the podcast, the show that we did, and also the article itself is the link in here on how to kill your bills. But here is a brief overview of that. Solar systems are available for generating electricity in hot water. You can generally don't need planning permission to install the panels unless you're in a conservation area or live in a listed building. So check with your local authority and check online as well. South-facing rooms are obviously the best. Roofs are obviously the best, but systems for east and west-facing roofs are available. Or you could go for a ground insulation in your garden as well. Yeah. Technology is advancing towards batteries that store energy for longer, which means you'll be able to keep the excess electricity for a quite literally a rainy day. So that's another way. Now, I'll be honest. Did you see things like that years ago in the films? Out in the prairie where they had the wee windmill going in the films in America and the way out west thing. They have the wee windmill going, which is a turbine today, and then they had something like batteries and generators below it, and it's like, wait a minute, are we being conned here? It's like, they try to sell us something that we already have and try to package it up as a new thing and actually charge more money for it? Because I'm convinced we have all this anyway. It's just the fact that we're not utilising it properly. I think most properties will end up, especially in Scotland, will end up with wee wind turbines, to capture the energy when the energy prices go a lot higher. What's your thoughts on this, Perry?
Oh, for me, I think it's something that will become the norm. And I think it is a good way to do it. And I think when we see now the way that prices are going, around 60% of the nation's electricity was generated with renewables over July the 23rd and 24th weekend.
Yeah.
And that capacity is improving all the time. But that doesn't get promoted anywhere, does it? Because they don't want to let us know about that.
That's 60% will probably be the whole of Scotland providing the whole of the UK, by the way.
Yeah, we could certainly do that. There's lots of ways, there's lots of ways to do that. We're building the farms in the North Sea and out in the Forth. There's like wave farms coming as well. We've got all of our natural resources around us that can help us with that.
You factor in the 2 more energy price increases in October and January, and the return on your investment is greater than ever. It makes absolute sense to actually start looking at these things now. So I think this is going to be the new sector, which is actually going to rise. So people that have got in this sector early and are positioned perfectly for that increase in these sort of sustainable renewables. So I definitely think that's an emerging market for us. We're prime positioned in Scotland to take advantage of that because of everything we've done before. Just to finish off then, what's the next steps, Andrea? What's your thoughts? Next steps, just a quick brief.
Yeah, ensure that your home's a comfortable space and place to live in is essential, and protect its value and keep it in demand no matter how competitive the market. So obviously, if you are thinking of selling your home, come to us. We can do a walk through your home and give you any hints and tips what you can do to help improve it or let you know that everything's just fine to go.
Perfect. Perry, what about yourself? Just to finalise on this, what's your thoughts on this all?
I think my biggest thought is that there are so many things that can be done yourself to improve your home in winter and in summer months. But actually, it doesn't always have to have a huge cost to it as well. We've put the links on the post on the show. So there's ways there that you can actually apply for grants that will help you achieve that. Use it, go out there, be proactive and just kind of try and help yourself as well and educate yourself. We say this a lot in the shows, but it is about educating yourself so that you are in control of what's happening in your world.
Yeah, there's huge measures you can do, especially coming into winter. Elaine Collier actually did this in the Credit Crunch. She actually had a blog, one of my friends. The one was actually take your old bed covers and actually make curtains out of them to close off all the drafts and keep the heat in and keep the cold out. So that's another way to do things. So there's lots and lots of things to do out there. There's more information in this post itself. Click on it and listen to the podcast later on. And if you need any advice, please feel free to contact us. We have loads and loads of blogs and vlogs on our websites. We've also got them on our YouTube channels. I've got over 150 helpful guides that can help you through any process that you could think of to do with property and energy saving and anything like that. And that's it, guys. Thanks very much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Enjoy your day today, and for everybody else as well. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye from her.